Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Joe Keevans and I am the Marketing Manager at Infuse. Infuse is a London-based provider of quality assurance and software testing solutions. We are gold level partners with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and Oracle, as well as a bronze winner of the 2015 UK Oracle User Group Partner of the Year Award. Our test expert professionals hold certifications from the International Software Testing Qualifications Board, better known as ISTQB, as well as HP and Oracle. Today, we're presenting Connecting Silos in the Oracle Lifecycle within a Digital Strategy. Our presenter today is Richard Turner, Infuse's Managing Director. Richard has over 25 years experience in the IT industry, mostly within system integrators. He previously led Oracle practices at HCL and CSC. He holds a Chartered Management Accountant certification and has worked in industry at the director level prior to moving to consultancy. Before I hand it over to Richard, just a little housekeeping. For audio, please note that you can switch between telephone and VoIP at any time. If you have any questions during the presentation, please do type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. We will address them after Richard's presentation. We expect the presentation to be about 30 to 35 minutes, leaving some time for Q&A. And now, without further ado, I turn it over to Richard.
Hello everybody and welcome. Thank you for attending today. We'll go through what's going on within the Oracle marketplace today and how Infuse can participate in that and what that looks like within the digital arena. So if we just flick to the first slide. Okay, thank you Joe for the introduction. As Joe has mentioned, I'm currently the Managing Director at Infuse, which I started in February. I have worked at a number of large SIs, KPMG, HCL, CSC amongst them, Bearing Point, largely in the Oracle space. I have before that worked in industry and I've achieved a qualification as a Chartered Management Accountant. So I have quite a depth and breadth of experience in the Oracle marketplace, within industry itself and within the consulting arena. I currently live in Taunton, down in the southwest in the cider country, and I'm married with 4 children, all boys, so my poor wife is more a general than she is a wife at the moment. And I was originally born in Salisbury in Wiltshire. I'm an avid Liverpool fan, so you'll have to forgive me for that. And I'm a bit of a gadget freak. I like to see all the latest technology and gadgets and how they work, and if I can get my hands on them. When I'm not actually doing all this, I do like the fresh air. I like to walk. I like to get out and about and see places and explore. And I do love cars, unfortunately, usually the ones that I can't afford. So that's a little bit about me. As for today, I thought we'd run through a little agenda. I'll talk a little bit about who Infuse are and a little about what we do. And then we'll talk about what is driving change within business and within the large SIs and the economy in general. We'll then move on to what is Oracle's strategy for the new brave world, and then we'll get started. Excuse me a minute. We'll get started on our journey, and we'll talk about the importance of QA and testing in that journey, and then how we can help, and we'll then run into some Q&A. Okay. So firstly, a little bit about Infuse. Infuse was established in 2002 with a focus on quality assurance and test automation, and have successfully delivered over 200 projects since 2002. We've done this through strong capabilities in our professional services and our use of cutting-edge technology and new products which we can combine into solutions. We've taken these products and services out to a number of different partners, and as a result of that we've been working with Oracle in a gold partner status. We also have, as Joe has mentioned in the early part of this webinar, we have alliances with HP, We are an SAP partner, we're a CA partner, and we have also a global partner network which we use to facilitate and broadcast our products and services. We are quite an innovative company. The fact that we're an automated test company, I guess, alludes to that, but we are very much of the opinion that the new digital cloud-based technology that's gripping the marketplace is where we will see agile companies with innovative ideas in a very small and niche way developing to larger companies. And I guess we already see that in the larger SIs, where the SIs were built against one-shop stops with quite monolithic organizations, heavily partner focused, with large projects being their key. And we're seeing today, with the advent of cloud and digital, we're seeing those project sizes shrink. We're seeing those SIs not seeing the size of project that they once were, and we're seeing companies who are becoming much more intelligent in their purchase and acquisition of these technologies and their use, looking for the more niche providers. So the objective for us is to talk about our Use Mango, which is our scriptless testing automation, which can be used for SAP and Oracle and for web. And we're looking at how we can apply these technologies in the environment we find ourselves in. So a little bit of our recognition, just quickly. The next slide shows some of those certifications or acknowledgements within some of the major players. And our local partners, so for instance ROC is a company that owns Nimbus. Nimbus was previously owned by Tibco, and it's an automated BPM tool. In addition, we've talked about SAP and HP and Oracle. We've also got alliances and relationships with a number of large SIs, the CSCs, the Capgeminis, HCL. We are talking to IBM and a number of other large SIs. And the purpose for that is, of course, they don't tend to invest in lots of innovation, so they look to their niche partners to provide that innovation which they can take to their customers, and we would be amongst a number of those. So who have we worked with? Well, the list is long and distinguished, but just to show that we do actually work for some people, I've put a few of our current employers on there. So we've worked for and are working for the AA, JD Williams. We worked for the Combined Armed Forces through one of our larger SIs. HSBC is another one. So in addition to that, there are the number of SIs that we've put some of those on there, people like Deloitte, and we're working in the education sector as well with people like the University of Nottingham. So what is driving change today in our marketplace? The three key drivers for change are business, compliance and technology drivers. But what do I mean by that? Well, if a business is looking to grow and expand, and it has to do that in order not to die, it needs to be constantly looking at mergers and acquisitions. It needs to reorganize to reflect the changes in the economic and business conditions it finds itself. It needs to recognize there's a life cycle in the products that it has, and it needs to be constantly coming up with new products and services that the clients want. It needs to find different vendors to make sure that it's getting the best economic deals, and it needs to change and grow within its business, which means that it needs to look at its business processes on an ongoing basis to make sure they're still current and work. But coupled to that, you'll see that there are all the regulatory and compliance issues that it needs to adhere to, part being members of the EC, trading in different companies, the rules and regulations around its data and how it holds its data, and where it holds its data is quite a major player today. If you're in different verticals, Sarbanes-Oxley and Basel II in the financial services industry is quite key around risk and compliance. And then there's the obvious technology drivers, which is the ongoing maintenance of the technology you use, the functionality that it provides, and what new functionality you're being called to use or require in order to keep your business up to date. And then, of course, if you're using technology and you have an enterprise architecture, inherently you will need to upgrade it from time to time, or you may even need to replace it and roll out a new version. And if you're a global company, and let's face it, today everybody is moving into a global marketplace, the marketplaces are becoming much more joined across that global marketplace with the internet and with cloud. So you're probably looking at international rollouts, which means you have localization issues that you will need to adhere to or contend with as well. So if they're the business drivers, then there's the digital drivers. So what is driving us and your business to adhere to a new technical digital strategy? We're seeing a lot more products and services coming to the market that are very disruptive, and they're changing business trends, they're changing the way we do business, they're changing how our customers want us to do business and how they want to do business with us. We're seeing business ecosystems having to change to reflect those global markets. They have to redefine their architecture to reflect that global market and to adopt those technologies. We've already seen that those technologies are not always coming from the larger players. Sometimes they're coming from lots of bright ideas, with the ideas being swapped quickly over the internet. That those ideas are coming to fruition faster and faster. They're maturing and coming with new products and services that are quickly being drawn to a marketplace and to a customer base that wants them. We're seeing a number of business moments happen, and business moments Gartner defines as specific transient opportunities that illustrate how people, businesses and the internet things interact. So how do people interact is the big key to this, and what does that mean in terms of driving it through digital economics? You need to harvest the value from your business ecosystems. You need to identify the business moments, so all those moments come together and they create an opportunity, and then you need to exploit that opportunity and drive that into the marketplace through your business in order to make money. And of course, to do this is quite difficult, so you do need algorithmic business models and opportunities there. So you need to drive that and understand that you will need help with your technology in order to realize those benefits in the ecosystem. And this is driving a machine-to-machine type operation. So if they're the trends that drive digital, and we recognize that everybody needs to move to a digital or cloud type environment, how do we do that? What would drive you as a business? Well, the consumers and business buyers, they are definitely going to drive you. They're informed, they're becoming more digital native than tourists, and by that I mean a lot of the people today have grown up with the technology, the handheld devices. They expect it. They expect to be able to get their information real time on the go when they want it, and they don't want to wait for it. And you need to be ready with your systems and with your business in order to meet that need, or you'll die. So this lends itself to opportunities for us, but it also lends itself to a number of problems and issues that we need to help our customers address. Primarily amongst this, the CIO is finding himself more as an integration officer than an information officer. He's combating against an ever-growing technological wave, and he has to come up with the strategy and deliver it against an ROI. But that strategy is one that if he doesn't move quickly enough, or he doesn't identify the ideas fast enough, and he doesn't bring that into his company quick enough, then others within it will adopt or go out and find their own. There are apps, there are various different clouds that they can bring in, there are various social and analytical tools, and we hear the words of cloud computing, Internet of Things, big data, mobile apps. Well, how does a CIO today, how does he address that, and how does he recognize that, taking his current enterprise architecture, moving it into the new world, but not throwing the baby out with the bathwater? He needs to be able to identify what he can save, what does he need to do, how does he do it, what order does he do it in, and how does he realize value but still stay within a budget. And if he doesn't get that right, the financial stewardship of the company will come into question. So he needs to satisfy his CFO, and he needs to satisfy, who in turn needs to satisfy his stakeholders and his shareholders. So still want to see a return on their investment, and in fact they'll probably want to see a growing return year on year. So he has to continue to grow year on year, and the business has to continue to grow year on year while making fundamental changes to its business. And in turn, when he's doing this, people are no longer wanting to take the big monolithic projects and then get clobbered with change requests when they've not considered one thing or another. They're going to want to know exactly how much they're going to pay, so people will see OPEX rather than CAPEX. And by that I mean they're going to want to know on a monthly basis what they have to pay. They're not going to want to go for a large financing amount of money and hope that they've funded it right. They don't want to manage that risk themselves. They're going to be very aggressive with the results they see. They're going to want those results to show value very quickly. And it's going to have to be a value-led proposition. It's got to be low risk because they don't want to lose their jobs. They do not want to have any dent or impact on their business or profits. And it has to be agile and small, and it has to be able to be seen to be on track and to purpose. And that purpose changes with the changing needs of the economy and the business. So again, it has to be agile enough to be able to change and flex with the needs of the business and the marketplace. So this again in turn leads us as companies into quite a difficult new arena. We can't afford to have large monolithic organizations anymore because we just can't carry the overheads. Everybody has to be driving, everybody has to be accountable, and everybody has to have the knowledge of both selling, managing and delivering to satisfy the needs of the customer. So our business and delivery models are changing. They're transforming how we interact. We have to be different when we interact with our employees. We need more partnerships. Our suppliers have to be more flexible, and our consumers have to accept that we're going to deliver in discrete small chunks of work rather than the large blocks that we had. And if we get it right, we end up as a Netflix, not as a Blockbusters. As we know, Blockbusters refused to change. Netflix took all the movies into the internet, and there's only one winner of that. We see the idea of Amazon, and we see the idea of Google and Facebook, and all companies are aspiring to be that company. But they're not there, and they're not going to be there for some years to go. And in order for them to move to that, they're going to need an awful lot of help. So we need to help them with their competing cloud strategies, and we need to help them with their new age, digitally aligned companies and how to shape those companies. And the companies that are going to do really well are the ones that have the preferred supplier relationship and not just as a trusted advisor. They're going to be able to be flexible. They're going to be rather cheap by comparison to the old large rates that we got within the SIs, because again it's a global marketplace and we see constantly it flitting around. We've seen the low-cost commoditized services coming out of India, Poland, Nigeria, Malaysia, and each time those costs seem to rise exponentially, then it moves to a new country. I think the latest one I heard was Czechoslovakia, or what was Czechoslovakia and now isn't. So it's a case of recognizing where you can get those low-cost commoditized services and which services are a premium that companies are prepared to pay for. So identifying the digital strategy, identifying what the needs of that company is within the marketplace and the trends that are driving digital, we then go to, well, what are the common challenges when we take that to a business? And there are a number that they're usually split between IT and business. So from a business perspective, every day they're going to hear that this product or that product is the best thing since sliced bread. It probably isn't, but that's what they're going to be told. So there's a plethora of products and services coming, and in order to continue to run their business while making those changes, they're going to need help. So we need to create some sort of funnel for them that channels those ideas into a target operating model, looks at that target operating model against their budget, outlines which things they need to do in which order. And sometimes it may not flow in a straight waterfall. Sometimes it might be an agile approach where we build things temporarily for them to realize value because it makes sense to do so, and then discard it later for an improvement. So we'll need to show that within the target operating model with individual business cases coming off of it and a return on investment for each of those business cases. And if we get it right, their budget, if they have £1 million budget, we should be able to realize £1.3 million of actual work for them, generating investment in the year, which we can then plow back into their rejuvenation as a business. So we need to do that, and that will satisfy their need for a reduction of total cost of ownership. It'll reduce their operational expense, and it'll address some of the other issues we looked at around security and around support and upgrades and business requirements changes. But in addition to that, the business is also going to want help with, well, what innovation should we put in, and how will that affect my domains of change over the organization? So by domains of change, I'm talking about process, organization, location, data, application, and technology. So they will need business champions for each of those areas, and those champions will need support from us. We will need to see what the effect is over that organization, because the transformation can be just as crippling as the adoption. So we need to make sure that that transformation and adoption within their company can handle the new technologies and systems and processes that we bring to it. So in addition to the financial, there's the business day-to-day issue. So companies are going to be demanding agile, they're going to be demanding DevOps. They probably won't know exactly what that means, and they probably won't want all of the DevOps or all of the agile approach. So we need to be flexible, and we need to be able to adapt to the need of the business, but still reflect that we do have that capability to take them over the longer term into the brave new world. So companies today, a load of companies have already made the decision whether they're going to go for the large vendors, and of the largest vendors we have Oracle or SAP, probably in the application space as being the largest companies. So Oracle is probably the largest IT company after Microsoft. So, and in terms of the application space, SAP are challenging strongly in that, but Oracle's background and pedigree and history has been in infrastructure and databases. So they tend to offer the whole stack to a customer. By that I mean they offer the applications, the middleware, the hardware, and they offer the managed services that follow it, and the support goes with it if the company wants it. They too have identified that they need to change. They can't go on looking at the same business models and practices that they have. And if we look at the Boston Matrix that they published for Oracle for 2015-16, you can see from that they've understood it. They understand that cloud services are the stars, and that on-premise, while there's still going to be a demand, it's the cloud services and digital that's going to drive the future revenues of their business. And they've restructured their business, and they're working with their business in order to create the software as a service, the applications that would support that software as a service. They're looking at the middleware, they're looking at the hardware, and they're really addressing the infrastructure as something almost that they're not going to see the large revenues on. They wish to bring their customers into the new digital cloud arena, and they want to control that. And how do they control that? So this slide shows the platform that they put forward as the way for a complete end-to-end Oracle stack. And you can see everything's as a service. There's a platform as a service, and within that we see the Internet of Things, we see mobile integration, we see Oracle Process Cloud Services, we see the database cloud service, and above that middleware we see all of the things that we would have known in the e-business suite, the HCMs, the ERP, if you will. Within that there's the procurement and the supply chain and the business intelligence and the finance, and all of these have now been chunked up into discrete individual clouds. So whereas before we had the integrated ERP, now we have individual clouds, and a lot of the work is going to be in the integration between those clouds. So how do you get started on your journey? How do you push this thing forward? Well, first of all, you need to have a cloud adoption strategies, which means that you need to do some sort of assessment with your customers. Where are they in this brave new world? And you need to elaborate on that. You need to look at the target operating model, as I said. You need to look at what the requirements is for that company, and then you need to look at the gap. This is all fairly standard stuff if you've delivered projects before. How many times have we gone into a client and said, right, what are you trying to do? What are your requirements? Where are your business processes? You know, once you've got those business processes, you need to configure them, and then you need to test them, and then you need to release them into production. We need to do this with a view to a cloud strategy, and we need to help them plan and estimate, size it, and then work towards that. And part of that is to look at their architecture and their design. We need to look at the functional design and the integration and the migration that will be required. And then we need to lead them into a pilot. And again, nothing is very different from what we've done in the e-business suite or the Oracle stack before. But what is very different is that Oracle's Fusion is very different from eBiz. It still has a large part of its DNA, but what it doesn't have is it doesn't have the same stack or setup as the original system. And we need to be cognizant of that fact. And once we've got the strategy, we then need to look at how do we deliver this in a more agile frame. It has to be 100% factory-based implementation. So we need to show these new technologies and this new transformation and automation, and we need to show that and help the companies adopt it. And then we need to be able to roll it out quickly and deploy it quickly with none of the same issues that you would have done around the data migration and the transition and the adoption and the change management. So I guess what we're really saying is you have a landscape, you have a hybrid architecture, and you have a future state. The hybrid architecture is where you're going to go in the interim period. You can't do everything all at once. The customers know that, and so do we. So we need to be able to be selective about what it is we introduce. What do we keep? Some of their products and services they will want to keep. It will be specific to them as an organization. It will be something that they use and are reluctant to throw away or have built themselves. Or it may be that they just don't believe that they would get any real return on investment or value add from replacing it in the interim period. So we need to take them on that journey and show them that migration over time with the value add and the return on investment that brings, and how we mitigate that risk. So here's just one high-level view of how that might work. Again, I've talked in the early part of this presentation about going into a project. Once we've identified what it is they want to do, we've identified what the enterprise architecture should look like and what they're trying to achieve, we then move into the project implementation phase. And we then go through, let's capture the requirements and let's put it into business processes. And they may have some business processes or they may not. And then we will go into, let's put it into an ERP system, and then let's look at what customizations, extensions, modifications, etc., the localizations and interfaces that you may want to use. And then we'll need to test all that, and we'll probably need some sort of business change management tool, regulatory compliance tool that monitors what we've done, what we've changed, why we've changed it, and it'll need to lead into all of our social, into our analytics, into our mobility and cloud stuff, sometimes referred to as SCAM. You may have heard that term. And we need to have something that's maybe a situational awareness tool. So if I'm the CFO and I'm on the go, I want to know and I want all my data and information for a meeting, and I don't want to keep phoning up 2 weeks before to tell them I want this, that, and the other. I expect it to be there. But more importantly, I expect to know what's going on in my company. I would want to know if something has changed. So if the process has changed in between each step or has shifted in its entirety, upwards or downwards, I want to know that. And I want to know it's now, and I don't want to rely on an individual human interaction in order for that knowledge to come to me, because it's only then that I can make the changes swift enough to prevent my company from losing money. And then I want to transition it into production and push it into some sort of managed service where I still want to see my value add, and I still want to pay for loads of tens of thousands of people to sit there running that for me, especially when I know that there's robotics out there that can automate the process. So for instance, a month-end close of the financials, there is no reason why we couldn't automate that entire process. We know which ledger needs to close and in what order, and we'd only want to know if there's been any problems or issues in that close. So that may be one area that we could automate in its entirety. So the magic source of that is the QA and assurance. And I'm sure if you talk to companies, they will say, we've tried this before, we've had a number of different suppliers and vendors, and it never works because everybody starts fighting and everyone blames everybody else. Well, actually, because it's more small and it's agile and it's more discreet, then it's become less of a risk, and that those groups of companies can form consortiums, And those consortiums are probably, because they're smaller and more reliant on actually getting paid, and they can't afford for the credit risk of having thousands of pounds locked into dispute, they're all going to have their best people. The people that they show up with to sell are probably going to be the people actively involved in the delivery of that program. And those very same people would be the innovators and thought leaders that have created those solutions and products and services. And therefore, that mitigates and takes out some of the risk, as well as the reduction in size of the program in terms of value and in terms of timeline. So part of that for us is the QA testing. So we offer a number of services there. We know that there's a proliferation of tools coming in. People are talking to us about agile and analytics, predictive analytics, access anywhere, anytime. They want to be able to shift left. They're looking at all these new things coming to the market. And they know that whenever they introduce this, it needs to be thoroughly tested before they release it into their business. Because if they find those errors and issues later in the evolution of the project, it can be extremely detrimental to them. So when we apply our testing strategies and we go in and we look at we do our assessments on what they're doing, we quite often find that faults will account for 30 to 50% of the total software project costs. So the whole point of the agile automated transformation and testing is to reduce that by an alarming amount. So the slide here that we're looking at is all about where we can reduce that within the life cycle. We know that if we find the errors, they're going to be expensive. If we find them early, they're less expensive because we then have more time to fix it before it goes and gets released into production. If we find it later in the program, then it becomes more expensive, and then the budgets will rise quite significantly. So it usually accounts for 35% of the IT budgets and up to 9% in 2014. So we will look to be agile and quick, and the automation means that we have less human interaction. We can see where those errors are much more quickly, and we can control them. So how can we help with all of that? When we look at our tools and services, we have the services we provide, which is the application test services. We then have the products. So we have Intelligent Upgrade Robot, which can upgrade your databases. We have Use Mango, which is our automated testing service. We also have a number of other products and services like Tokabot, which can give you the robot for doing your laptops and your iPads and your handheld devices and your phones. It can do the manual testing, which handles the HMI piece of it. And the reason we do that is because it's not always conducive to, when things are running on multiple platforms, to be able to code in order to run those tests. So sometimes we take the HMI interface and we automate and roboticize that in order to speed it up. So this slide just shows you where we sit, our services, solutions and products. And I just wanted to bring your attention to the application one, which is our Use Mango. You can see from Use Mango's, it's made up of a number of components that we capture from the screens that we can then put into tests, and then we can scan it, execute it and report it. The tests are built as a sequence of components that we pull together, and then we can run those tests as many times as we like. We can simulate the volume and sizing, and it gives us an automation, which means that we don't have to pull out people from the business for large amounts of time to run these tests. And if we look at Use Mango, where does it sit? Well, you go through the requirements in the unit, and then when you go through integration and your functional, non-functional testing, then your regression testing and user acceptance testing and into product deployment, you can use the Use Mango through the whole of that. And once you've gone into deployment and you're running your managed service, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't do discrete projects using Use Mango as well. And once you have that tool that you're able to use, you can continue to use it within your own organization. It's a case of, we can teach you to fish or we can fish for you. In the project, you'll probably want assurance. You would want the security and advice that the Infuse Consulting can bring to you. But in post go live experience, the individual users will want to be able to have that flexibility so that when they do their upgrades, they can retest using all the scripts and services they've already paid for. How many times have we seen companies building business processes and test scripts and filing them away in a filing cabinet, only to find that when they do dig them out, everybody's left, nobody really understands what was written, and they're really no use to man the beast. So here we are providing a service that enables them to pick this up again and run it as time after time. So we have a number of success stories. We have worked for a large government agency where we saw some 1,300 business processes and test cases were automated. We were able to boast 90% reduction of the test cycle time, which was fairly significant. That is above our normal average. We would normally expect to do something like 60%, but because it was a government agency and it was so archaic, it was very easy to make some fairly large benefits for them. And that caused a 75% reduction of their manual test estate, which was quite staggering, and 50% of the total testing costs that they estimated was saved through using our tool. And we had another recent success in the FMCG space where we were able to save 500,000 euros per test cycle, some 50% reduction of the regression test cost. And that was with 500 end-to-end UAT cases. And with that came a 90% reduction of the testing effort. Again, fairly large, because we find that the retail sector is again a sector that has fallen some way behind in their technological advancement, so are able to realize some really good values. So in summary, what are we telling you? All businesses are being driven to a digital and cloud approach. All companies have varying degrees of knowledge on what that means. They hear the buzzword, they understand Internet of Things, but they don't understand what that means. So for us, it may be explaining to them what that means. It means if you have a washing machine and it needs a general upgrade, or the motor runs out after 6 months, it means us being able to explain to them by using an Internet of Things approach. We can make sure that we contact them before it happens, that we have an engineer that will be there with the right part before it actually breaks down, that can just phone them up and say, this needs changing, when's a good time for us to come around and do it. That's Internet of Things for a company. It means that we need to be able to help them with the integration between Sales and Service Cloud, for instance. We need to be able to do that for them and tell them what they need to do. And we need to take them on the journey, but we need to do it in a way that brings them with us, that is sensitive to their cost, that doesn't disrupt their business in any major way. And we need to do it quickly. We know that IT companies like Oracle are already doing that. And again, their customer will be aware, but won't be aware what they need to do and when they need to do it, and what the importance of it is. So we need to put that in an order that they can understand. We need to take the large company architecture in the new digital world, but we need to recognize that you probably don't want to adopt a one-shop stop, and there will be particular products and services that they want or should retain, and we should be there to advise them on that. We need to help them with the strategy, create the target operating model, and then do the QA for them. And that QA could be done as part of a partnership, and I think small, agile groups of innovative companies are the way forward. Infuse is part of that new company, that new digital era. It's agile, it provides high quality service, it's discreet, and it's automated. So what can we bring to the party? What does it deliver? We can bring all those automated testing services and a large part of the QA, and we can bring a large number of our partners and services who we work with on a day-to-day basis and are linked into our products and services with us. We can give them a viable option to what has been a large SI-led industry. So thank you for listening to me today. I'm now going to move to a Q&A function and invite you all to ask me any awkward questions that you may wish to. And over to you, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Let's have a look here at the questions. Looks like we have a few. Let's start with, how would you plan for the effect of a digital transformation program on your business?
Okay, I think you need to go back to the slide which talks about how do you automate through the whole project. I think that's the key thing. Once you've identified the strategy, in the early part of the days, there are a number of companies out there that will offer to take you on a digital strategy and a digital journey, but some of them are very, very high value consultancies that don't really live in the real world. I think it's much better to have a few practical guys in there as well. I'm not saying that the Bain type approach is not valid, of course it is, but you need to have someone that is in touch with what's going on in the marketplace, and you need to identify your partners carefully that are linked to your products in order to deliver them.
Okay, next up, does automated testing work with a Fusion implementation, or does this only work with the e-business suite?
No, it does work with the Fusion, but it won't. With the Fusion, it's less likely that you're going to require the performance testing. You most definitely will require the integration testing and the functional testing, the non-functional testing, for example. But because Oracle owns its own cloud, it's more likely that they will do the performance testing.
Okay. Looks like our last question here. So how does Use Mango compare to Oats?
Okay, well, Oats is Oracle's testing, Oracle Application Test Suite. It emulates what they believe is the test requirement, but it links only to the Oracle product. It's quite large, it's quite timely to set up, whereas Use Mango can be up and run within an hour. It can take a month to use the Oats package, and it is much more inflexible than the Use Mango.
Actually, we have one more question here. Does it automate the testing of apps, for example, mobile apps?
Yes, it will work with the mobile applications, but again, it will depend on which mobile applications. It doesn't have adapters to everything, but it does have adapters to some things. Now, what we're doing in terms of the release, the Use Mango product was one of the first, well, it was the first automated testing tool to be released to the market. So we do have an ever-growing wish list, and I guess it would depend which mobile apps you wanted to integrate it to. For if we look at Oracle, there isn't very many Oracle mobile apps that require that product service, but it will. It is flexible enough to do that.
Okay, great. Well, that wraps up our webinar for today. On behalf of Infuse, thank you, Richard.
We have one more. Does the Nimbus product integrate with Use Mango?
Okay.
Yes, it does. We are currently working with Nimbus on the adapters that link the automated BPM tool to the automated testing tool. So that's happening as we speak. It already has some adapters, and there are more being built every day.
Okay, great. I guess any last questions? Now's your chance to ask.
And for that, oh, hang on. When Use Mango disconnects from its dependency upon HP UFT, how will inspections be done upon the GUI? Okay, we're currently working on the disconnection at the moment. I'm happy to, Chris, if you'd like to pick that up and send us a request, I can connect you with our head of technical testing, and he can provide the more detailed aspects of it. But yes, it can be done. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. And for Chris Tomlinson, come on, Leicester. Yes, well, Tottenham are just breathing down your neck. Okay, so thanks for that.
All right, everyone, that wraps it up for today. Please do keep an eye out for an email from us with a link to the recording of today's webinar. If you have a minute, we'd appreciate if you could fill out a 3-question survey on this webinar. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.